in. Come on in. Welcome to Aries Rose TV. It's been a while since I have been live. I hope you're having a wonderful end of the year. I cannot believe that we are just a couple days away from 2026. So much has gone on in 2025. We'll see what unfolds in the next year. But one of the movies I was most looking forward to at the end of the year here was Avatar: Fire and Ash. I'm a huge Avatar fan, love all of the movies. Definitely feel like these are ones you have to go out and see in a theater. The care and the time that James Cameron takes into these movies is just something that has to be admired and enjoyed on the big screen in a theater with other people, because there's just something about that shared experience that you just can't get at home. Just my humble opinion, the best way to see a movie is still in the theater. So I've heard a lot of people that have been saying that Fire and Ash is not a really good movie, but I'm not sure what they watched. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie so much. I have very minimal complaints about it, including the runtime. I have just a minimal complaint on that, and I really think it's a worthwhile movie. And I want to tell you some of the things about this movie that I truly enjoyed that make it better than what you may have heard. So, in case you may not be familiar, this Avatar series is one of James Cameron's best. I think it's one of his most popular and it's made a lot of money. It's well over, I think, a billion or billions combined for what this franchise has made. So, he's definitely gotten a return on his money for this one. And let's get a little description about what this third installment in this trilogy is about. And this is from IMDb. And this is Jake and Natiri's family grapples with grief encountering a new aggressive Navi tribe and the Ash people, who are led by the fiery Varang, as conflict on Pandora escalates and a new moral focus emerges. So I want to talk about some things about this movie that I really enjoyed. I love the way that James Cameron made Pandora very immersive in this film, much with The Way of Water, where you felt like you were living with a particular Water Navi tribe. You were experiencing it the way that they did. That's the way I felt he did here in this third movie. So we got introduced to some different types of Navi than we've seen in previous movies, and I think he did a really great job with bringing part of their world into the Pandora that we're already familiar with. Take a little pause here for some comments. Welcome, Scissor, F3X, and Priya Steinmetz. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate you. And let me know if you have seen Avatar: Fire and Ash in the comments. Curious to see how many folks have gone out to see this movie. But in this movie, you're definitely going to get a lot of vibrant, bright colors. He really explores some different wildlife on this planet, which I think just add to some really cool scenery, and it just gives a different vibe in this movie, especially when you see it 3D. For me, it felt like I was in Pandora. It was a very immersive experience, and that I really enjoyed. So for that purpose alone, I would say it's worth going to see in 3D. Just the detail and the colors really pop on that screen when you see it that way. I really enjoyed how they used a lot of the planet with how they were trying to combat the pink skin. It's what they call the human kind of threat. I just like the way that they interacted with that planet, especially in particular the character that's kind of like taken over for Grace. So she's the daughter of Grace, but she's voiced by Sigourney Weaver, and that kind of threw me off for a little while. The name is Kiri when I'm seeing this young girl, but I'm hearing an older person's voice that was matched to her, so I didn't realize that was Sigourney Weaver that was voicing her. But I really like that character in particular. I like how she's kind of very in tune in a just a different way than everybody else with Awya and with that planet, and her ability to get the things to do what she wants by just tapping into them and whatever kind of brain magic power she's got going on there. I thoroughly enjoy that character. So I'm glad that although Sigourney Weaver, in the way that we saw her in the first one, did not continue, that spirit of that character, Grace, does continue in Kiri. And I thought that Kiri, who was played by Zoe Saldana, did a really good job of playing a grieving mom. You do believe that she is going through some things. She lost her son, I believe it was the oldest son, in the way of water. Spoiler alert. If you have not already seen the movie, we will be talking about some different things into the movie. Not too bad, but if you haven't seen it and you don't want to hear anything about it, it's a good time to pause now and then come back and watch this after you've seen the movie. But I think Naturi does a good job of playing a grieving mom. She has very real emotions of trying to grapple with losing her child, the situation that caused her child to be lost, maybe feeling a little bit that she's not 100% connected to her kids because she knows that Jake is an avatar for a human that he was previously, and they're not going to be 100% Na'vi because he's not an actual Na'vi. He's an avatar Na'vi that's somehow able to function like as if he is was born an actual Na'vi, and they just moved over Jake's consciousness into it. And so I think, she plays that very well, as feeling conflicted and needing to work through that. And then you see Jake, who's not obviously very good about talking through his feelings. And you can tell he's feeling something about his son passing, but he doesn't know how to express it. So he just keeps himself busy. And his son, that's still alive, kind of remarks that, my dad's way of handling it is just, don't talk about it, just kind of bury it. And you see that he's in there trying to figure out how can they protect themselves so that if the humans ever come back again, they can be prepared, because they just have bows and arrows, but that's not going to be enough to fight against the humans and the kind of stuff that they're going to bring to potentially cause some issues for the Navi. So you can see, that's his way of dealing with something that he can't control. And you can see the families, kind of divided. The kids are on one side, the parents aren't 100% unified. And I think that's just very real for when there is a loss of a child. You're going to feel it differently. Each parent's going to feel it differently because your relationship to the child is different, and grieving looks different in everyone. And I thought the movie did a really good job of expressing that. Take a quick pause for comments. We got, is it Lacree Strawderman 7467? We're talking about Avatar, Fire, and Ash. And Priya Steinmetz, thank you so much for the compliment. Really appreciate you. And then I also enjoy Quaritch. Quaritch is back in this movie, and I love the relationship that he has with Jake. I could watch several of these movies with the two of them just going back and forth. I've heard people say, that's kind of been the same situation in the past two movies. It's those two kind of going after each other. We're looking for something a little bit different. But I feel like there is still a story there because he didn't really ever resolve that. And I just enjoy that between the two of them. I find Corch to be very entertaining. And if he's not kind of going after Jake, what other role would he play? I also enjoyed him with Varang, kind of the new villain, if you will, of the movie. And she's the leader of the Ash people. And I thought her and Quaritch made a really good team, kind of like Natiri and Jake. They were the opposite sides of that. And watching those two interact, I thought there's a storyline there. I could definitely see a movie about those two, and I would not be bored. They're interesting characters in and of itself. Even if you don't continue with Jake and Naturi, I really could see those two having their own kind of movie. And then we have the kids, and you got the younger brother who is still grappling with losing his brother, trying to figure out his place. And he really wants to prove himself as being capable and able to do something. And he really wants his dad to kind of see him in the same way that he saw his brother. And you can watch, you're watching him try to grow up and come into his own and become a leader, and kind of grappling with whether or not he should be a leader. If he is a leader, what does that look like? I think that's very real. He was kind of put into a spot because his brother passed unexpectedly, and he's growing into that role. He doesn't feel probably like he is ready for that, but whoever does, things don't always happen on the time or when you feel you're ready. and he was growing into that, and you kind of watch that happen in this film. So I thought that kind of character arc with their son was great. The only real complaint for acting that I have in here is the one human out of everybody in there that's playing a human is probably the worst actor in there. In my humble opinion, that's the one that plays Spider. Jack Champion is his name. The acting is so wooden, so wooden that it was just like, are you the actual computer graphic in there? Because the computer graphic Navis were giving me more emotion and more real acting than I got from the actual human on there. So it just blows my mind because there's so many years in between these films that I'm like, you couldn't go get acting lessons. Like, you couldn't step up your game a little bit. You're the only human in there. At least come with some kind of A game. I want to see you put some kind of energy into that character. That character I have a hard time connecting with because they're just so there's no there's no personality there. It's just very bland, very blah. I feel like the Navi just give off more energy, more lifelike characteristics than Spider does. But Spider does have a pretty big role in this movie, and a lot of the kind of action and situations that the family get into is behind Spider. So Spider is really the only human that is with Jake Sully and his family, and they are now living with the water Navi. And his mask that he wears for oxygen, it starts to go out. And I'm actually shocked that that hadn't happened previously, but that's not really something that had been explored prior to this movie. But I guess because they're not per se close to where humans are, that kind of makes it adds the stakes a little bit higher to it. And once that mask starts to go out, fortunately, I want to say it's Jake that wakes up and hears it, and they had to search for his other mask and replace it before, he's gonna not be able to come back because he's not getting enough oxygen. And they were able to do that in just enough time, but he realizes like this is gonna be his situation the whole time because he can't breathe the air here. So if he's not close to where we can get some kind of mass or make sure he can have access to this could be life threatening for him. So the parents make the decision, Jake and Naturi, when the wind people come, the wind traders come, and their ships are so beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. They float in the sky. I love the colors. I just like the whole look of it. That vibe was a nice touch. I enjoyed that he incorporated in some other kinds of Navi to really show some different parts of this planet. And I truly hope other movies give us even more than what we've seen in here. But the Wind Traders were some of the best parts of this movie to me. But Jake sees that as an opportunity for Spider to be able to get back to a place where there's more humans so he can have access to these masks so his life, as best they can, won't be in danger, at least from that particular sense of not being able to have oxygen. And so they go to the family, let the kids know, this is the plan we've come up with, and the kids are upset. But the one who barely gives an emotion, although it's related to him, is Spider. He was just so no, I don't want to go. I'm not going to be a problem. Just let me stay. The other Navi kids were giving way more emotion than he was. That just really kind of threw me off in the scene because you're supposed to feel for him, and he just couldn't even emote enough at all to make you feel anything. Like, do you care? Is this a bad thing? I don't know. Am I supposed to be sad? Is this a good idea? I don't know. You're not kind of giving me any cues to go off of here. But I thought the way that everybody else carried on in the scene kind of really carried that, and that's just pretty much what it was. Everybody else really carries Spider in this movie because if they leave too much on him, to me, he was just he was just the worst part of the movie to me. I hate to say it, but that was the truth. He was probably my bigger complaint than anything. And once they do get on to the Wind Traders floating ships, the leader of the Wind Traders is like, I don't want Truk Makto on here. That's going to be looking like we're taking sides. You're going to be endangering my people. I can't do that. We are neutral. We trade with everybody. We don't want those problems We don't want what comes along with this. We agreed to take the boy, but the rest of the rest of you coming on, that's not what we're doing. And so Jake's like, all right, well, I'm not gonna be on your ships. Turuk Makto will not be on your ships. Just me and my lady. We're gonna patrol around. We're just gonna be security for you. We're gonna fly around, make sure everything's all good. And they agree to that. So the kids and Spider, they all get to be on the floating ships, but Naturi and Jake are flying around it, kind of doing security. And they notice ash people coming down off the mountain, and they're coming to attack these wind traders. Why? We don't know. What they're supposed to get from these wind traders, we don't know, because they don't appear to actually get anything from them. They just destroy the stuff that they have, and they just look like they just like to tear stuff up. That's really the vibe I got. I never felt like they were actually trying to get something. They were just being destructive. But why? It's never really clear as to why. But they do have some great aerial shots of Natiri fighting Varang, because it's the first time that they're seeing them. And they have fire, and they use fire to take down these floating ships, and they use the fire to they kind of box the Navi in with that. So they really use that to their advantage to kind of control the situation and destroy stuff. And it's clear that they are a different type of Navi than what we've seen. So most of them are all blue in some form or fashion, or the water Navi were kind of like a greenish blue, but still blue in some form or fashion. The ash people, had no color. They were kind of pale in comparison to them, and they had white and red on their skin. They kind of walk hunched over, where most Navi are standing up straight. The ash people kind of walked hunched over. And the only one that kind of carried themselves with some real confidence was the leader, but the others, not so much. Not so much. So you can just tell that they were not in balance with the planet and Awya like the other Navi. You can definitely just see that they are different in how they look compared to them. And that comes off in the way that they are towards the other Navi. They're just far more aggressive than we tend to see the Navi being towards each other. And so the little piece that they have in the back of their heads that connect them to the planet and to different animals when they're flying them, or if they're swimming with them, or the way that they connect with Awya, I forget what that's called. But this particular ash people tribe, they go and they cut those off from the other Navi, which ends up taking their life. That cuts off their life force to them, because that's their way of connecting to the planet. And there's just no clear reason as to why they do that, but it's definitely more of the type of, I just see more of the type of aggression in this group than we've seen previously. Unprovoked aggression, where they're more of the aggressors onto people. And you can just tell that they seem to just have a grudge with the other Navi. I don't know if it's because they just don't like them, or if they just enjoy seeing destruction along the path, or making people as unhappy as they are, because that's really how they came off. But they were a team. They were a team, and this Ash lady, Queen Verdang, definitely had control over her group, and they end up bringing down the wind trader ship that had the kids on it. So they have to, try to figure out how to get out of there and how to get back to their parents, because Loak, I think is the son's name, Jake's son that's still alive, did not bring his comms so he could get in touch with his dad, which is, one of the things his dad said is like, you need to have your comms. You're not following all the preparation steps. You want to be seen a certain way, but you're not doing what you need to do to make sure you're living up to that. And so I enjoyed that arc, because I'm sure that's a lot of relationships between fathers and sons, where you're trying to come into your own to be a man, and your dad saying, you're not ready yet, and you're just trying to rail against that. And sometimes you still have to learn whether or not you might feel like you're ready. We still have a lot to learn, and it just takes time for you to understand that and to really come into your own. I just liked watching how Jake was trying to groom him, and it's for reasons like this, to teach you to be ready, because you never know what situation you're going to find yourself in. And because it was just all the kids together, he kind of became the leader of that group with Kiri, Took, and Spider. Loa kind of was taking them around to make sure that they were safe and protect them. And he used a pow pow to try to keep those ash people off of them while they're trying to get away and see if they can't reconnect with their dad. And in doing that, that is where Varang sees that and is like, whoa, what is that? I need to get one of those. I'm liking what I see here. You got to teach me how to use this. Like she's all about this now after she sees the power that this has, because they're not familiar with these types of things. They've never seen it before. That Navi generally have bows and arrows. So Loak and the others, they do get away, but the problem is, again, for Spider, his oxygen machine is going out. The battery is low, and the spare he left on the ship that came down. So they got to circle back, even though they saw the crazy ash people over there. They got to circle back to try to get that, because he needs that to breathe. Otherwise, he's not going to work. And while they're trying to do that, there's a whole other side plot of Courage and his sidekick, whose name I can't remember, is still looking for Jake. And so they end up finding the kids by doing some kind of location GPS spotting. They end up finding the kids on the Wind Trader ships, and they go, oh, okay, we know Jake's going to be over there. They start heading in that direction, but before they could get there, the Ash people had attacked the Wind Traders, which took down their ship and ended up kind of displacing everybody. And during that battle, Natiri ends up getting hit with a bow and arrow from Varang, and that ends up kind of knocking her out, and she falls down off of her dragon. I forget what the name is, that they kind of fly. She falls off that and falls down into the kind of forest there, and she's unconscious because that injury was pretty bad. So she's kind of out for the moment. She's not really doing too much here. The Eclan, I think it's the Eclan, ends up coming down to help her while she's injured, to get back to where she can get some help. But before that, she's just sitting there unconscious right now while everybody's just kind of displaced. And so Jake ends up tracking where the kids were before they left that ship to try and find somewhere safe to go to get away from the ash people. He ends up finding that spot, but then Courage finds him along with his sidekick. So they arrest him, go through the whole rigmarole. You know what you did. You're going to come in. You're still being held responsible. And Jake's like, look, the kids are out there. We got to save them. We got attacked. You know, Spider's out there. He needs his mask. We got one here. It's probably needs to be changed. Like, we can do this another time, but we got to go and save the kids. And Courage has a little bit of a heart, because Courage is the father of Spider, so he knows, you know, and he also used to be human, so he knows that that's important. So that one we want to, that's the one where you want to go back and, you know, make sure you can get those kids saved. So he does let him go and gives him a chance to save the kids. And he helps him to find the kids that he was tracking. And then he wants the hand little wrap that they have around his wrist. He wants that taken off, and he's like, nah, we're not going to do that, but if you can track them, we'll let you track them. So he does track them so that they can find them, and they do end up saving the kids. But before they can get to saving the kids, Spider runs out of oxygen, so he is struggling to breathe. Kiri's kind of all really concerned about it, and she just tells Loak to lay him down here. And he's like, what are you doing? He's like, I don't know. This just feels right. And then she taps in the little piece in the back of her head. She taps into the ground there, and she takes something off, one of those little white kind of like floating flowers. She pulls a piece off of there, puts it into Spider's mouth, closes it, and then, when she's tapped in, she's just kind of doing her little motions over the body. And then you start seeing things come out of the ground that starts going into him, going into his nose, and going into his mouth, going into just different parts of him where you could see that the planet was just kind of like going into him. And he's struggling to breathe, and then he just stops breathing, and then she's having some type of seizure. Kiri is, while she's attached. So Loak attaches her, and then they're kind of like they don't know if he's alive or what happened or what she was even doing. She said it just felt right, so that's what she did. And then it turned out that she ended up helping him to be able to breathe. So by doing that, he was able to now breathe the air without wearing a mask. So he can now live there and breathe the air just like the others without having to worry about changing out a mask. So that is like super exciting for him, because now he can be around them and pretty much do the same things they can do without having to worry about that piece that kind of kept him from being able to fully enjoy life with them. And also for the fact that he can now breathe their air for whatever was changed in his body, he is also starting to grow one of those things where he can connect to the planet out of his head. So Kiri, by way, just kind of changed him into a Navi without him having to have an avatar body and have his consciousness put in there. It's kind of like changing him into one, or at least one that can be a little bit more compatible with that planet than he can just as a human alone. And so they see that. Courage and Jake see that, and they're like, whoa, how is he breathing without a mask? Because they didn't see the whole thing Kiri did prior. They just got to the kids at this point after they were cornered by the Ash people. And so he's like, we got to worry about that later. Let's just save these kids, which is what they end up doing. And they're able to get out of there, and they're able to reconnect with Natiri, because her Eclon saves her and gets her back to her family. And then they're able to, once she gets back and gets some medical attention, she's able to tell them where they were, kind of the situation. They're all able to find everybody and reconnect. And then, unfortunately, Courage ends up taking Jake in because he is wanting to still turn him in for him turning on the humans and helping the Navi to defeat the humans. And that storyline, it's so funny to me, but it was kind of good to see that arc happen, because he kind of got to take him in, and he goes into this place, and the goals are still the same from the humans. They want to get whatever this material is that they can get on this planet so they can take it back to Earth and make a whole lot of money. But once they see that Spider's able to breathe without a mask on here, they're like, wait, maybe we could potentially live on this planet. And Jake's concerned, like, if they can figure out how to live on this planet and breathe the air, they're going to come, and they're going to come and take over. And we need to be concerned about that, because you don't want that to happen to this place. So I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the whole family arc. I really loved the immersive experience that I got to be in this planet. Felt like you were experiencing all the things with them and watching them go through this whole journey and learning about the Ash people. Farang tells her story to Courage, because Courage is coming to her for help, because they have a commonality of wanting to get Jake and his family. So he kind of uses her thirst for wanting to be destructive to help him, because they really, I think, are two souls from the same coin. So they connect, and she's like, in order for me to help you, I need to know what's in your soul. I need to know what you're about. So she kind of gives him some stuff. And she puts her hand over in front of his face, and she's got like an eye or some stuff that's written on there, and she starts asking him about what do you need help with, wanting to kind of understand him better. And she tells her story of their village was ravaged by fire. The fire bent their village, and they called to Awya for help, and Awya did not come. And so she said she went to the fire and she learned how to use it, and she helped her people. Awya did not help them. So that's kind of why they're out of balance with the plantings. They don't revere or think of Awya in the same way as the other Navi from their own experience. So she doesn't feel that Awya is useful and that she has no dominion on them. So they just have a different mindset than the rest of the Navi, and Courage tries to use that to his advantage. They have the last fight scene, I think, was awesome. I really enjoy the whales, the large, large, large whales. When I see their size, I'm just so enthralled by the size and the creativity that James Cameron put into those creatures in particular. I find them very interesting. And you can tell he obviously has a great care for marine life for the way that he depicts them in the movie. And I particularly enjoy that the most. I really enjoy watching them swim with those whales, and I know that's not their name. I can't think of what they're called in the movie, but I enjoy watching that interaction and then watching them come to help the Navi in those battles. It's very clear there's going to be another one of these movies. I definitely think this one is worth going to see. It's over 3 hours, but it's a very good movie to me. I didn't even notice the time. I was just so enthralled with the story and the visuals. I would love if they continue this. I just think it's one of the last movies that you can really get excited about, and one of the only movies I would be willing to go see in 3D and pay to go see in 3D. So I highly recommend going to check this out. Going to see it in IMAX is even better if you can. Let me know what you think about Fire and Ash if you had a chance to check it out. Like, share, and subscribe if you like talking about movies. Definitely going to be doing more movie reviews on here. Stay tuned for my review of Five Nights at Freddy's. Looking forward to all the awesome movies in 2026. Thank you so much for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel to grow. We're looking to get to 2,000 subscribers. We'll see you soon, and have a